Welcome and welcome back, everybody, to the OK Grognard Show. It is Monday, June 14th, 2021, 10 a.m. Central, in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Hmm. Well, today we're going to take a look at the Dungeon Master's Adventure Log. It's a 1980 product. I discovered they took it down from Drive-Thru RPG. They had it up as a PDF even as recently as last year at this time, because it's about a year ago that I picked up a copy in PDF form from there. So, sadly, I don't know why they stopped carrying it that way, which is a shame because obviously it's a useful enough item for the people that like keeping track of things this way, and we'll go into some of the details on that. But it also is something that if you are adept with creating forms using Adobe, um, it's ideal for something like that, right? I mean, the form's all there. You just have to make it a form fillable form. So I will probably need to do that for myself and let the chips fall where they may. Sadly, it's not available. But if you can get a copy of it in hard cover form, in hardback form, in its original form, would probably be easy enough just to scan the forms, and you would have to do that to make copies of them anyway, or you would have to make multiple copies of them anyway. Even if you got the PDF, you'd have to print multiple copies. So it'd be useful like that going forward anyway. So, grab a copy, find a copy, pick a copy up on eBay or some such. There it is there. Speaking of Adobe, I'm going to slide myself over in the corner a little more. There we go. Hey, Sarah, I see you lurking in there. Sorry I missed the game yesterday. I got tied up, but hopefully we'll get a chance to play again once, twice or so before I head back to the store later this summer. Late July or something like that anyway. Probably, if not then August. But it'll come up pretty fast when it comes up, I'm sure. So we might have to start, unless you guys want to go on and play, without me in that same game in the same time slot. It's very likely that I'll wind up working on Sundays most of the time going forward. So that'd be that'd nix me playing in the game on Sunday. So we'd have to find a different time. That's not to say I can't just step away from the game. Obviously, I'm going to be pretty busy once that kicks back in. So it may just be there's no good time. I don't know. We'll find out. In any event, Dungeon Master's Adventure Log. Here it is. The first page. I've got it on scrolling. I think we'll switch over to the big monitor so that we can expand it if we want to from time to time here. So that is the front cover. I'm going to pop it up a little bit more already, just so we have it. It's not long. It's all of 10 pages. And if you'll notice, even the explanations are spaced out. How to use this product is so it does not require a lot of explanation. I'll quickly go to the back page because that shows both of the forms and then a whole bunch of advertising stuff of other adventures, the Steading of the Giants, the Drow, some the Tomb of Horrors trilogy, a couple of the standalones, Dungeon Geomorphs, other advertising on the back worth sharing. But here are the two forums, and they don't come in this form if each one's a full page. We'll go over them individually, but you can see, put all the player character information on one, and then you coordinate that player character information with some logging information. We'll go over that. I think we're even going to pop this bigger. What the heck, because it's not hurting anybody. We'll rotate the view clockwise and get the full double form on here. Alright, let's go up to 120. That should keep it all on the page. Almost. Just barely. Sample adventure log pages. Here you go. On the left, character information, character number, player name, character name, class and level, race and sex, alignment, special abilities, magic items or personal abilities goes in that section there. Combat adjustments to hit and damage, armor class and type. Good to know all of that stuff. Alright, and your hit points. Just information, good to have at hand for the Dungeon Master, whoever's running the game. I think it might be worthwhile under personal abilities, or maybe just a line that goes across player name and player character, because you really don't need all that much room. Where you have the 5 saving throws at hand. Maybe a little enough room in those to show what it is at its base and the pluses on top of that. I think that would be important information to have at hand. You got the marching order up here on the other sheet for the GM to keep an eye on. That's when they're side by side. You can spread them out, change them around a little bit. If you had this sheet at least partially laminated, that would be something you'd want to change from time to time, or would be fairly fluid. Who has light sources is right underneath that. Number 4 has a torch. That's Jeff, Ducky Duck. Number 5 has a lantern, Steve Marsh. Number 10 is a bullseye lantern, Gene Wells, and Lawrence Schick has a torch. These don't have to be in order, but doesn't hurt. Notice how they have the second rank and the second from the last rank. All 4 of those people have some sort of a light source. Now, these characters are 5th, 7th, 6th level. I am very amazed that none of them has a continual light stone. Just a stone with continual light cast on it. Because they do have a cleric of 7th level who could make those up in their spare time. Just churn them out and sell them. I mean, use them. Over here to the right of the marching order in the light is a set of monsters, a list of creatures. These can be coordinated to rooms that are coming up in a dungeon. You can mark them down here so they're handy rather than flipping through your notes. Just some details of what is in there, hit dice, how many appearing, hit points for them, armor class, movement, attacks and defenses. The fire giant can hurl some rocks for 2 to 20. Lurker above, surprises on a 1 to 4, good information to have. Giant spiders have poison. You've got the damage that they do. Look at the gargoyles. Claw, bite and that head spike that some of them might have. There's a robust list of foes indeed, George. Welcome to the party. Acid breath from an adult large black dragon. Now, is that too big a dragon to be throwing at a group of 10 5th to 8th level characters? I don't think so. They should be able to handle themselves. Maybe. Notice down here we've got some treasures, and 1 corresponds with the gargoyles, 3 corresponds with the orcs. They've got a lot of stuff because there are a bunch of them. So you've got 1 list of treasures here, 1 list of treasures here. Some of these are just miscellaneous treasures, as it denotes. So you can set up some list of treasures that correspond with the encounters early on, or you can just put a few in here that are just random treasures in case they come across a treasure that's unguarded, or a trap, or a tomb, or a wandering monster, anything like that, where you can fill that in. Unusual events. I thought this is kind of funny. Morgan, who is Tom Moldvade's character from this list here. Morgan Ironwolf's Constitution +1 from a magic chair. Somebody sat in a magic chair. Fred 9802, that's Dave Cook's character, talked back to Odin and lived. Black Dougal slain by fire giants. Oh, I'm so sorry, Kevin Hendricks. Knock Grafton, who is Helen Cook's character, pocketed Ring of Delusion without knowledge of party. Well, that's going to backfire. Sister Rebecca, which is the character of Rebecca Moldvay, falls in valiant combat with a black dragon. Well, there's an answer to our question. Black dragon's not too tough for the whole party, but tough enough to do some serious harm, at least to one. George says, thought on the lack of continual light spells in use. Yeah, it's surprising that they don't do that. Having at least 1 heat source might be good for oil usage. Yeah, absolutely. If they're going to be tossing flasks of oil, you'll need to get them ignited in some way. I think it's also worth noting, too, and it's a kind of a lesser consideration, that if a Dispel Magic is cast, it can affect light sources that are magical, and then you've got to fall back on the others, and how much time do you have to get one lit? On the other hand, a good strong wind. I mean, a hooded lantern is meant to be working even in the worst of conditions wind-wise, but that's not necessarily going to help you with candles and torches and that sort of thing. We're going to rotate the view back over counterclockwise, head back to that second page. Now that we've seen some of that in use, let's just go through some of this stuff here. Right? To read out what it says about its usefulness, the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Adventure Log has been designed to assist the Dungeon Master by organizing information about the player characters and their adventures on his or her campaign. These sheets will provide easy reference about a character's abilities and combat adjustments, and at the same time will allow the DM to precisely check what has occurred in an adventure. Furthermore, by keeping sheets detailing past adventures, the DM will be able to record secret information, like that Ring of Delusion, without losing it. These sheets have been drilled, so if you get the physical copy, for use in a 3-ring binder, but have not been perforated for removal. So you'll have to get the booklet out necessarily. Well, you're supposed to just keep it all together. Do not tear these pages out It is intended that all pages remain to provide an ongoing history of a campaign. Each adventure should make use of a 2-page set. These have been placed to face each other when the booklet is open to lay flat. The left-hand sheet contains space for noting information on the player characters, henchmen, and hirelings. The right page is used to record important details of the adventure. Each of these pages is explained in more detail below. Well, we got a lot of information just by looking at the sheets and how they were filled out in this sample. But let's go over the various line items, as it were. Character number. Each line is given a number for the character written there. The number may be used in lieu of a name when noting marching orders, light sources, events that happen to characters, and to randomly determine which character an event affects. Sturge attacks. Some swarm of sturges attacks the party. They're not necessarily going to be coming from the front or the back, possibly from above. They could attack anyone. You can roll a 10-sider in this case because there are 10 characters. And just look down the list and boom, you're all set. Class and level. This base is for the character's class and level. Below is a listing of recommended abbreviations. And these are pretty handy, although some of them I would change in future. Not necessarily with the class, but C for cleric, D for druid, F for fighter, P for paladin, R for ranger, MU magic user, I for illusionist, A for assassin, M for monk. Those last three would not appear in my games, so I might just use M for magic user if I was really abbreviating stuff. Generally speaking, it's easy enough to use MU, and it's a little more evocative, I think. Level refers to the current level of the character. Race and sex, this could change. I mean, a lot of people prefer using species as a term these days. I'll remind people when they used race back here, it was a little more in the saga/literary sense, where a race was a group of individuals, not necessarily race as we use it today. Nevertheless, species is a little more apropos if you're not using species that can interbreed, although some species can interbreed, and they're chopping down trees outside, it sounds like. I don't have half orcs in my campaign. Half elves are possible, but I think like with is it a horse and a mule makes a donkey, or is it a horse and a donkey makes a mule? How does that work? Define mule. I always get that confused. So a quick look here. Offspring of a donkey and a horse is a mule. Typically sterile and used as a beast of burden. So they say mules cannot breed. Maybe halflings or half elves should be along that lines too. You don't want a bunch of quarter elves and eighth elves and generations later, 16th and 32s running around, yeah. Or maybe you do, and it doesn't matter, and it may not. Male and female, okay. I guess that's simple enough for the day. It was what it was. We won't go into more of that. Magic item and special abilities. This large space may be used to list magic items. A character may possess any special powers due to race or class a character may have. When listing magic items with charges, the total number can be placed afterwards. During the adventure, appropriate changes should be made. When the same character adventures again, the DM need only refer to the listing of the last expedition. that character was on to learn the number of charges remaining. Special abilities. The DM may wish to include the chances of finding secret doors, detecting traps and slopes, hearing noises, speaking unusual languages, etc. Combat adjustments. All alterations to the character's chance to hit, the amount of damage caused, may be noted here. This will include magic weapons, strength bonuses and penalties, magic devices, and other things. Kind of information you may want to include with armor class too, which is the next section. Armor class and type. A final adjustment armor class, base armor class, whichever the DM refers, may be listed in the space. I'd prefer both. The type of armor may also be listed along with any magical adjustments the armor may have. Armor type can be abbreviated as follows: S for shield, L for leather, studded leather, SL, R for ring mail, SC for scale mail, C for chainmail, SP for splint, B for banded, P for plate mail. All pretty simple. Marching order, by writing the number of the character. Marching order can be arranged 5 foot wide or 10 foot wide or 20 foot wide corridors in the space allowed. It may be convenient to imagine one shaded block as being equal to 5 foot in width. So they're already looking at 5 foot squares this early in history of D&D, when 10 foot squares were generally the norm in early Dungeons and Dragons. And 2, I think even 3 smaller characters could be abreast in a 10-foot square. So if you had some halflings or elves who weren't heavily armored, you could fit three side by side, and if they were all using spears, even better. Somebody swinging a sword, though, throws that all out of whack. Monster number. This helps the DM keep track of the number of encounters a party has had. It may also be used to match treasures found to the monsters who guarded them. Alternatively, there may be situations where the DM may create wandering encounters ahead of time. These may also be listed here. And that is not a bad idea. If you have the chance to throw together a few wandering encounters for an adventure you're going to be run, it can keep things moving along and much more smooth, especially in one-shots where your time is very limited. Your regular campaign group might not mind the occasional let's take 5 while I figure out what all this is, and you can put together a wandering monster encounter or 2 and even throw their treasure again together, but then you're not getting a break. And if you're going to take a break, the group's going to take a break halfway through a session, say, have 2 hours into a 4-hour game. You're going to need a break too. So, doing this stuff in advance. And of course, there are monster and treasure assortments, as they mentioned. Those can be very useful. Having those to hand for games like one-shots and whatnot can be fun. A lot of people don't like doing wandering monster encounters during one-shots because they tend to take up time that sidetracks away from quote-unquote prepared material. But maybe that's the free-form sort of game you want to run, even at a convention. And if there are wandering creatures, then so be it. The remaining monster information, it continues, may be taken directly from the monster manual and listed in the spaces provided. Attacks and defenses, including the number of attacks, damage, and special attacks and special defenses. Light. The light carried and who is carrying it may be listed by writing in the character number and the light source on a line. The DM may also wish to note the round or turn the light was started. If you're a very detailed dungeon master who likes to keep very close track of how long a torch will burn, how long the oil in a lantern will burn and will need to be replaced, And it's not a bad idea to do that sort of thing, especially with newer groups and newer players, to get them used to the idea that those things are included in expendable resources. And they should understand that they will have to, from time to time, replenish those resources. It's a good idea to keep track of that and make mention of it, even if it's just a brief kind of throwaway mention, halfway, 6 turns in, an hour into an adventure. You say, well, you've got a bundle of torches. The one you're using is burning out. You light another one off of it. You say questioningly to the player, in hopes they merely nod and you can move on as quickly as possible. But at least you've done some kind of bookkeeping, if you will, under the guise of narrative, which is good to keep the immersion factor up. So there you go. Run out the torches, run out the oil. It's all good. Unusual events. This space is given to note the occurrence during the adventure that cannot be covered elsewhere. This is especially useful for recording deaths, like the Black Dragons, changes in characters' abilities, like sitting in a chair, or prime statistics, like getting +1 to your constitution, alliances, enemies made, and other notable deeds of the party. Treasure number, this can be the same as the number of the monster which guards the treasure, or may be entirely different according to the DM's wishes. How kind of them. Treasure type. In some situations, the DM may wish to indicate the treasure type found, especially in wilderness situations. This will allow the DM to give a more balanced treasure later on, when more time to think about such things is available. So if you do some Wandering Monsters and you just want to say Type C treasure is what these monsters normally give, you collect it all and we'll roll it up at the end of the evening, or I'll roll it up between sessions and tell you what all you found. Is it suffice to say there were several sacks on a chest you'll have to haul away? Done and done. Let's move on. It's not going to be overly important at the moment. You may want to roll up magic items in that case if they do exist as part of a treasure, because those are something that the party could make immediate use of. George chimes in with, you can start mentioning a light source is starting to give off less light, smaller radius perhaps as it burns down on fuel. That's a great point, George. Certainly torches that sputter don't go out immediately upon a certain expiration. They will slow and dim. And so too, as fuel runs out in the lantern, there'll be a sputtering and less light will be given for a period of time before they would naturally go out altogether. So well worth noting. I'll tell you what, we're going to save this for next week, the rest of this, because I love these combat modifier tables they have in here. Surprise, encountered, listening at doors, a number of other tables. And then, of course, there are the sheets before we get into a few more tables for outdoor stuff, like becoming lost and whatnot. And then we got to the samples, and then we're back onto the back page. So we've got a number of pages left to deal with here. And I think it'll be fun to dive into each one of them. Maybe we'll even spend a couple more weeks on this. I think it's well worth it because there's a lot to gain out of utilizing these. So if you can get a hold of one, by all means do so, because it's going to be well worth it. Hey, I'll just pop back in here just to say thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who has chimed in here. Lots of material for sure, Sarah. Thanks. And if you do pop into the stream Monday or Thursday at 10 a.m. on Twitch, I do appreciate it. And do yourself a favor and follow that Twitch stream. If you catch up with this on YouTube, by all means, Make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click the little bell so that you get notifications when a new episode is uploaded to YouTube. Give us a thumbs up for any videos you watch and enjoy, and by all means, feel free to comment in the comments section. And finally, thank you to everyone once again. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.